This is your Solent journalism update at 3:30. I'm very young and here are your headlines. At least 12 people, including a police officer, have been killed during a shooting at a California bar. A man in Southampton has pleaded guilty to child neglect after leading police on a 100-mile-an-hour chase, and the vice chairman of Southampton Football Club, Les Reed, has left the club with immediate effect. "12 people, including a police officer, have been killed in a shooting at a California bar. It is reported that the man opened fire at around 11:20 local time on Wednesday evening. Officials say the unidentified suspect was found dead inside and a motive has not yet been established. At least 200 people were inside the bar attending a country music night at the time of the shooting." Mark Hilden has been sentenced to 2.5 years in prison after pleading guilty to child neglect. The Romsey man led police on a 100-mile-an-hour chase along a stretch of the M27 with an unrestrained baby in the van. He was found to be driving over the prescribed limit of drugs when he failed to stop for the police. A woman was also in the vehicle with the 24-year-old during the chase. Southampton Crown Court heard today how the pursuit lasted for several minutes before Hilden attempted to leave the motorway via Slip Road at Junction 2. Here he collided into a police vehicle, losing control and striking a third vehicle. With the upcoming centenary celebrations to commemorate the end of the First World War, the Hampshire town of New Milton and Barton-on-Sea is taking the anniversary one step further. Our reporter Cameron Richards is in New Milton.
With the upcoming event of celebrating 100 years since the end of the First World War, the Hampshire town of New Milton and Barton-on-Sea is taking the anniversary one step further. The event is called Battles Over, a Nation's Tribute, whereby residents from the New Forest, New Milton and Hampshire will gather on Britain's coastline to pay their respect to the soldiers who fought from 1914 to 1918. I spoke to Steve Clark, New Forest and Hampshire councillor, to explain about what is to be expected at the event.
The commemoration on Barton Clifftop on Sunday is the culmination of all the celebrations that have gone on for the past, since 2014. And it will end with the lighting of a beacon which will commemorate the end of the First World War. But there will be a parade leading up to that, and we hope that hundreds, if not thousands of people will attend.
With people across the UK gathering for Remembrance Sunday, some people argue that not all people appreciate what the men and women of World War I experienced. I spoke to Mick Boot, who formerly served in the Navy, to tell me what he thought about this debate.
Firstly, I don't think that the younger generation do appreciate what those men and women went through during the World Wars, First World War specifically. And if we'd have lost that war, they'd be speaking German now. We wouldn't need to worry about being in the EU because we'd be part of Germany. I think the hardships that they suffered in those wars was absolutely terrible.
The Nation's Battle commemoration will take place on Sunday the 11th of November at Barton Clifftop, Hampshire, starting at 6 o'clock and ending at 8:30.
Military policeman Ian Davis caused delays at Southampton Central Station after he jumped on the railway tracks. Seeing his friends on the opposite platform, the man decided against using the footbridge to cross, injuring his knee in the process. 79 services were delayed, costing the train line £150,000. It is believed that Mr Davis had been drinking prior to the incident. Political correctness is an ever-growing anxiety for free speech activists. The UK police force is arresting 9 people a day on average for offensive remarks online. But is it okay to make similar offensive comments for the sake of comedy? Our reporter Robert Anderson decided to find out more.
The comedy scene in Southampton is going strong, with plenty of venues willing to host a wild variety of comics. But there's an ever-growing debate about what is okay to say in comedy. Political correctness was a topic of discussion when we sat down with local comedian Andrew White, who was happy to chat about the ever-growing anxiety about a PC influence on comedy.
I think comedians, that are anti-PC fall into the trap of seeing what's portrayed in the media. I personally don't think any comedian should have any stance on PC when they're performing. If you're performing to be specifically politically correct, then I think you're hindering your comedic ability and what you can say. And if you're doing comedy specifically against political correctness, you're still being swayed by it, even if you're going against it. You're letting it affect your comedy. And I think there should generally be a more of a move towards just doing comedy, and then correctness away from politics will naturally filter out what you can and can't say.
I'm here outside NS Theatres in Southampton City Centre, and many comedians have already hit the stage here. Earlier, comedian Elf Lyons agreed to talk to me about the topic of political correctness.
Not trying to think of the correct term, but they're almost the most dampened. Like, they are so scared or aware of what to laugh at and what to not laugh at. Like, you find people are very sort of constantly monitoring. And I find, like, the more young and hip the audience is, the more you have to wind them up to go, you know what, you can make comedy about, I believe you can make comedy about anything. It's within the context, obviously the delivery and the intent of what the joke is, or what the point it's trying to make is. I sometimes get accused of not being a feminist because I use my body in a sexual way on stage. And I'm like, the most unfeminist things to tell another woman that she can and can't do with her body.
Comedy is an ever-growing art form, but the question still remains whether its clash with political correctness will be sticking around for the long run. Robert Anderson, Solent News.
Now let's head over to Cameron Richards for our entertainment news.
Thanks, Vary. Yes, it's been a busy week this week in the world of entertainment, so here is a rundown for this week's entertainment news. The reality TV show Big Brother this week has come to an end after 18 series, but the presenter Emma Willis has said that whatever happens, she has said that she will carry on with the show if the show moves on to another broadcaster. Obviously, Chris Evans has left BBC Radio 2's Breakfast Show, but now Zoe Ball has also decided to leave the show as well. But that has left questions and rumours on who will replace her. But it is said that Rylan Clark-Neal is set to replace her doing the 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. slots starting from January 2019. Pusha T of politics, that's what James Corden said about Donald Trump this week after the following post-midterm election appearance from a news conference. And it's been in all the papers and all the bulletins and headlines because everybody knows that the Spice Girls are back, except Posh Spice. The group announced this week their reunion tour will begin in June 2019.
Thanks, Cameron. Lucia, could you give us some of the rundown of what's happening in sport this week?
So the main headline for today is after poor results from the Premier League have led to Southampton sacking their vice-chairman Les Reid. If Southampton failed to beat Watford for this weekend, it is said that the manager Mark Hughes could also be facing the sack. After the team having only won one of the 11 league matches, Adam Lee, chief sports writer for the Daily Echo, gives his input if the club will suffer in the short term without the vice-chairman.
I don't think it probably will have much of an impact, to be honest. He's, I don't think they're going to want to make a second change on the back of this. They're not got anybody technically in charge of that football side of things after Les Reid went, so I don't think that they're going to want to make a change with the manager, who would appoint the manager, frankly, at the moment. So I don't see it having a short-term impact. In the medium term, of course, it could do, because they will get somebody in to replace Les Reid, and when they do, that person might have their own ideas, but obviously that does buy the manager a bit more time to try and get things right on the pitch before that person comes in.
Thanks, Lucia. That's all from us today. You can find all our stories and more at ssjournalism.co.uk.